How we doing, everybody? My name is Dustin Brevet, and I'm the Senior Product Manager for Membrane, Shower Systems, and Floor Heat with Laticrete International. And with me today, on behalf of Floor and Decor, is Mr. Robert Goff and Mr. Adrian Rivera from our technical services team. And what we're going to be doing today is walking you guys through two different installations with regard to our shower installation system. So two different journeys, if you will, two different methods, two different ways of looking at such of an install. So with that, what we're going to be walking you guys through today is two different shower systems that we have. We have our pre-waterproofed linear drain pan system that ties into a barrier-free installation. And then we have our shower in a box, or our shower kits, prefabricated, preformed, lightweight pans with all of the trimmings to get you guys through a full install. With that, we'll be doing a center point drain pan. So a linear with Robert and a point drain pan with Adrian, and we look forward to walking you guys through that today. All right, guys, so we're going to get right into the linear drain or linear pan installation. So before we get started, just want to let you guys know that we pre-mixed some thin set for time-elapse purposes, for continuity, and to condense some of the time of the video. So we have that pre-mixed up. We have our Multi-Max Light. It's one of our lightweight thin sets that is really truly designed to focus around ergonomics. It's the same amount of coverage that you're used to in a smaller package, so less wear and tear on the joints. We know that longevity and self-preservation is one of the more important things that you guys are looking for, and we're looking to deliver for you as you go out on the job every day. So with that being said, we're gonna get started. We're gonna do a quick unboxing, and then we'll walk you through the finer points of the installation. But before we do that, I wanna make mention that while we are gonna be giving you some tips and tricks and pointers on the installation, it is imperative that you guys check the manufacturer's supplied data sheets. It has our recommended installation instructions that tie back to warranty and best practice and best use for the installation. So be sure to do that with any Laticrete products or for any products in general in this type of nature. So we're going to get right into it. Robert, why don't we start breaking this one down? So guys, let's just get this out of the way. All right, so first, you're gonna get a tube of our adhesive and sealant. This is gonna work to shore up any corners, coves, transitions, nail salability. It is a hybrid sealant. It can be used with a caulk gun, and again, used in any corners, coves, transitions for nail salability. It will be in this installation used along the rabbet joints to secure the curb to the pan and also the wall board to the pan. In addition, you're gonna have our data sheet, which I kind of alluded to earlier. Again, be sure to check all of our installation instructions, warranty information, common usage, and all that kind of good stuff. Now, the pan in general that we just opened up was a 34 by 66 linear drain pan. The first portion of it, it's broken into pieces for packaging, transportation, and shipment sake. You're gonna get the main body portion of it that is gonna have the pre-cut out section for our linear trough, which then works in accordance with our linear grate. You're gonna have rabbet joints all along the edge, and you're gonna have the pre-waterproofed membrane right on top of the pan. So right out of the box, very little in terms of waterproofing. It's already done for you. In addition, it is sloped, so to meet the recommended ADA requirements of a 1/4 inch per linear foot. These fall in line and are ADA compliant. They're also IATMO compliant. They can be used as a primary shower pan liner with regard to a waterproof installation. They're made of high quality and high density, durable, expanded polystyrene. The second portion of the pan is going to be the butt end of it. So it's that second half of the 34 by 66 slice. It's going to have a rabbet joint that helps it get accepted onto the other portion of the pan. Again, used in accordance with that adhesive and sealant. It's a thick bead right across the joint. Firm press, you're good to go. That's how you adhere the two pieces together. Last but not least, you're going to get two curbs that are going to work along the long edge of the pan. So the 66 dimension. Again, like the other two pieces, there will be a rabbet joint that you will have to apply a bead of adhesive and sealant to affix it to the pan and then to the butt end of the other curb. So in totality, you're going to be getting two separate portions of the pan itself. You're going to be getting two pieces of the curb that match up against the long end, and you're going to be getting a tube of our adhesive and sealant with also the warranty and the data sheet information. So with that, we're going to start prepping the substrate so we can start on the installation. So real basic, just make sure the substrate is clear and free of any obstructions. We're going to get the thin set off, our waterproofing, the box, all the extra components. Robert, I will grab this. So for the first portion of this, Robert's just going to take a clean sponge and apply it to the bottom of the substrate, clear it off for any dirt, debris, any mildew, anything that would have built up on the substrate that would degrade the integrity of the adhesive that's going to be marrying up the pan to the substrate. Now, it doesn't have to be anything special when you're cleaning the substrate. It can be a simple sponge, warm water, just really to get a good, good coating of the water to get any of that dust off. Very important for the integrity of the adhesive. All right, so now that the substrate has been prepped or cleaned, we're gonna do a basic dry fit. The best thing you can do and the smartest thing you can do for any type of installation is to do a dry fit beforehand. It's the old measure twice, cut once mentality. We wanna make sure that everything fits into place with the components that we have, so no extra modifications need to be done, and it just allows for a more seamless, easy install. So what Robert's doing is, again, much like the substrate, just taking the pan, cleaning it off, making sure it's prepped and ready to go for the install. All right, so Robert's going to get started with the front portion of the pan. This is the portion of the pan that has the pre-cut out piece that will accept the linear drain trough and ultimately the linear drain grate. As you can see, we have a pre-cut hole to act as the waste outlet for this installation of this mock-up build. Next, he'll be dropping in the second portion of the pan. As you can see, marrying up the two rabbet joints that I talked about. With regard to the dry fit, we're not going to go ahead and put the adhesive and sealant on just yet, but this is the portion where you would be applying the adhesive and sealant, so they do marry up. They do marry up with each other. So now that we have the pan dry fit, we're going to mark off the area so we know how far out we're going to have to thin set to. So Robert's going to start that. It's just a basic marking with a pen along the outer rim of the pan. This just gives him a basic barrier or an outline for once we're putting the pan back into place and we're applying the thin set specific to the substrate for the pan. All right. So now that we have the pan in place, why don't we put that back in there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a quick unboxing of our linear drain troughs and grates. So much like our pan itself comes in a Laticrete box, you're going to be getting the trough. Robert, here is the trough. That is a 34-inch trough that's designed to take our 34-inch grate. In addition, you're going to get a hair strainer, which fits directly into the waste outlet, and also our data sheet with our recommended installation instructions. In addition to the trough, you're going to be getting our drain grate. Now, our drain grates come in a number of different finishes. We have a polished a brushed and an oil rub bronze. Now there is a protective coating on the outside of this that you will eventually have to peel off. For the sake of this, we'll just dry fit it for the installation with it on there. You're gonna have your drain hook or your removal hook, and also the data sheet that ties back to the grate itself. So now that we have the dry fit in place, I think we're ready to get started on the install. So the next step is going to be to remove all the components from the substrate, and then we're going to go ahead and start thin setting or getting the prep work done with the thin set on the substrate itself so it can accept the pan. Started. All right. So as you can see, Robert's getting started, basically just giving a nice skim coat to the top, to the substrate, getting it ready to accept the pan, and ultimately all the thin set that's going to be going on. So again, remember, we have Multi-Max Light. This is our lightweight thin set that we're going to be using for this install. All right, so as you can see, Robert's continuing to add thin set to the substrate. He's going to continue with that skim coat process to get the substrate prepped so then we can ultimately back butter the pan and start with the rest of the installation. Now, if you remember correctly before, Robert drew lines as a basic guideline for the pan install itself. It's typical, or it's recommended that you extend that thin set out another couple of inches along the perimeter. That helps for the adhesion of the curb later on, and also the adhesion of the ramp that we're going to be showing you as it ties back to barrier free. Now, Robert, the trowel you have there, that's a 1/2 by 1/2?
It is a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch square notch trowel.
All right. So that, for this specific installation, it'll be different for the other one that we show you, but for this specific installation, 1/2 by 1/2 is what we use specific to the pan. Now, Robert, with that skim coat, do you just like to make sure that you have all the substrate covered so you're not seeing any exposed floor?
It's twofold. What you're really trying to accomplish here, if you can hear when I'm troweling, you'll hear it actually pushing that thin set into the substrate. So what we're doing here is on our clean substrate, we're actually creating a mechanical bond between the substrate and the thin set. And then we'll do the same thing when we back butter the linear pan. We'll also do the same thing, and it's creating a bond from that material back to the thin set.
So that's basically just going to get you the best possible adhesion between substrate and material to pan.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, in some instances, I know for the sake of this demo, we don't have it, but you could plug up the waste outlet so you don't gunk it up with extra material. Again, this is just a demo for you guys, but it is customary and could be beneficial on site to plug up the specific waste outlet so that it doesn't gunk it up with any material that could fall in during the installation. But we got Robert here. Robert's a pro. We don't expect for that to happen, but you guys can have that on site if needed. Not to put any pressure on you, buddy. No pressure. All right, so now as you can see, he's got a lot of material on there. We're going to start to see those grooves come out. Robert, you go left to right or back to front. What is the recommended direction that you like to have for your trowel marks?
Typically with this, it's going to come from left to right. Regardless of which way you want to go, you want to make sure that you do directional troweling. Using directional troweling and keeping all of your trowel lines in one direction is going to allow you to be able to force the air to escape, to be able to flatten that material out so that you can achieve 100% coverage behind the pan.
Perfect. So as you guys heard it, parallel or continuous, similar directional marks with the trowel. Now, in addition to being lightweight, that Multi-Max is pretty easy to work with, right, Robert?
Absolutely. Not having sand as an aggregate in it allows it to spread a lot easier. And like you talked about earlier, it being a lightweight formula, a lot easier to carry, and you get 50-pound bag coverage from a 25-pound bag of material.
Yeah, so the coverage you guys are familiar with our 50-pound bags and a 25-pound bag. So you're taking half of the resistance off, or half of the wear and tear of the abuse over time. So it's definitely a good thing if you're working in commercial grade installations where there's multiple floors, or even bigger residential jobs. So it's easier to transport, as opposed, and in addition, easier to work with. So like we talked about, while we wait for Robert to finish up with the buttering up of the substrate, and then eventually transitioning over to back buttering the pan, we will also be checking and cutting our ramp. So this is, like I said, a barrier-free installation. We have to tie back to the requirements with regard to barrier-free for a zero-entry shower. The ramp allows us to do that without sinking down the subfloor. So we have a number of different ways that you can achieve a barrier-free installation with regard to our system. We do have installation instructions that talk to a sistering of the joists and sinking down the subfloor to get you to marry up to tile height. Or if you use one of our pre-formed, pre-waterproof extensions, that also falls in compliance with the barrier-free regulations set forth by ADA. Robert, with MML, how long time? What's the workability time on MML, Robert?
Multi-max light, I think, depending on the time and temperature, usually have about 4 hours at 70 degrees. Higher temperatures, higher humidity would obviously reduce that. Mm-hmm. And on the opposite end, lower temperatures, lower humidity could extend that working time. But everything on our data sheets is based on 70 degrees, yep. And you would have about a 4-hour pot life on that.
And that's 50% relative humidity for you guys that are not familiar with the data sheets, but yeah. So you do definitely, for these types of installs, you have a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of time to work with the material without having to worry about it firing off. Another thing to note with our shower systems, it's based on a full system warranty. So all of our shower systems come with a lifetime system-based warranty. So there's a recommended suite of products that you would use for these, and which is what we're using today in this very demonstration that would qualify you for a lifetime warranty. All right, so now that the substrate is completely prepped and ready to go, Robert's gonna now back butter the pan, apply a skim coat much like he did to the substrate with the same, Robert, right, same half by half trowel?
We won't be troweling. What we'll be doing is this is essentially back buttering. So we'll be skimming.
Skimming it with the flat side?
We'll be skimming the back of this like we did keying in the substrate, and then that'll help achieve a mechanical bond to the material that's already on the substrate.
All right, so flat side, skim it out, ready to go. Got it. So again, just a basic skim coat with the flat side of the trowel. Make sure it's perfectly coated so it can then be pressed into the thin set that's already on the substrate.
set this one aside.
Yep. I'll get you the other. I'll get you the other one. Now we're going to set that first one aside, move on to the second. And much like we did with the first piece, just apply a light skim coat across to coat the bottom of the pan. For artistic purposes and for the sake of this video, you usually would be doing this straight on the bottom of the floor, but we are doing it on the pan just so it's a little bit more easily viewable for you guys watching. Want to spin a few? Now it does get tricky over there. That's why we're having a little weight behind it. This is a pro at work right here because that little piece could be pretty delicate over at the end. Let me turn it. Turn it. You got it. I think you can hear that optimal keying in sound a lot better when you deal with the pans, just based on the cementitious nature of the back of the pan when you're coating it. Kind of what you were alluding to earlier with the wood.
Yep, achieving that good mechanical bond. I think they've estimated that keying into a substrate gives you something like a 30% stronger bond than just taking and throwing material down and just spreading it out with the knot side of the trowel.
So, I mean, if you take away anything else from this portion of the install, guys, mechanical bond by keying it in is definitely a way to guarantee the integrity of the adhesion. Just troweling off the side for later. Makes sense.
Okay.
All right. You want me to do that? I'll set that aside for you. All right. So you want to get started. So what Robert's going to do is now place the first portion of the pan directly on top of the thin set that we applied earlier, lining it up with the waste outlet. And then Robert, the proper technique when pressing something into a substrate, is there a set way to go about it? Is there a way you recommend to go about it? Back to front, side to side?
Installing from here and working your way out is usually going to be the easiest, the same way you would do any sort of tile installation. You always start at the back and work your way out. So bedding the pan here along this wall, working your way out, and then as best you can, you want to try to wiggle that a little bit back and forth. Another advantage to Multimax Light is it has what we call thixotropic properties. And thixotropic refers to the nature of that material once it's agitated, that it continues to spread and kind of wet out behind it and helps you achieve help you achieve a better bond.
Got it.
Coverage is what you're looking for.
Got it. Now that we have the first portion of the pan down on the substrate, Robert's going to take the adhesive and sealant, the tube of adhesive and sealant, 10-ounce tube, I believe, that comes along with the shower pan. He's going to apply it to that first rabbet joint so we can marry up both halves of the pan. Robert, for this, it's just a generous bead across, right? There's no measurement. It's just a generous bead across the length of the joint, right?
Absolutely, and anything that works its way through, we're just going to take a margin trowel or something flat and just smooth that out.
Got it. Get that ready for you. And again, much like working it into substrate, it is press fit, working your way out. Same directional weight addition that we did with the rest of the pan. All right, guys, so for the final portion of the install, we're going to extend the thin set out a little bit to make up for the ramp that we're going to be adding in. So again, like I talked about, numerous ways to do a barrier-free installation. For this specific installation, we're going with the ramp approach. As long as you can provide an unobstructed access to the shower of less than a ½ inch, you are within compliance with ADA. Obviously, the ramp works seamlessly with the pan, so we're not going to have any obstructions at all. So what Robert again is doing, keying in a little more thin set to the substrate, to the line that he pre-drew out for where the ramp is going to go. We've, for time purposes, pre-cut the ramp to fit that butt end portion of the shower. We've already back buttered it. So once Robert has the substrate prepped, we're going to apply the adhesive and sealant to that last rabbet joint, and then we'll add the ramp and tie together this barrier-free linear pan installation. So again, keeping it keyed in, keeping the lines directional and equal to what we did earlier, remain paramount to guarantee that you're able to push all the air out and guarantee the integrity of the thin set and the adhesion between the two. You let me know when you're ready for the caulk.
Oh.
You got it. So again, just a generous thick bead across that rabbet joint will suffice. It'll lock it in. That adhesive and sealant is by nature waterproof, so you're tying together the waterproofness of the installation when marrying up parts and components. And Robert, when you're ready, you let me know, sir.
Ready to go?
All right, here you go. So again, a nice press fit along the seams, pushing it together and then pushing out to get the any air that's created, let it escape. All right, looks good. So now that we have the pan essentially down, we have the pan components combined and connected. The last steps that'll get you to be ready to tile will be taking our linear drain. Now with our linear drain, these are made of high quality 304 stainless. You would then take our waterproofing membrane, and one of the waterproofing membranes that we are featuring will be our Hydro Barrier Plus. So the Hydro Barrier Plus can be applied along the rim of the trough with a paint roll, with a brush or a roller. That'll allow you to adhere thin set directly to the stainless steel and ultimately tile up to the exposure or the opening of the drain outlet itself. So with that, I want to thank Robert for his time, and yeah, we're going to move on to the next installation we have for you. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, now that we've finished up with the linear drain pan installation, we're gonna transition over to our second barrier-free option. And this does one of two things. One, it talks about a different installation technique. And two, it talks about a different system altogether that we offer within our shower system assortment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get started on the unboxing, and then Adrian, while I do this, is also gonna get starting on the dry fitting process. Now, we've already taken the time to pre-coat and wash off the substrate, just to allow for continuity's sake and to kind of short down on the installation time. So once you open up one of our shower pans and kits, which is what we like to think of as a shower pan in a box, you're gonna be getting 2 pre-cut, pre-formed, pre-sloped pieces of extruded polystyrene. This specific kit is a 48 by 48 center drain pan kit, so it comes with all the trimmings. Adrian will start to dry fit that onto the substrate. In addition to the pan itself, it comes with a pre-cut piece of our sheet membrane. So this is essentially what's gonna tie in the waterproofing. As you can see here, we've taken the time and liberty to pre-cut out the waste outlet that the drain is gonna go in. Honestly, that would be one of the steps that you guys would have to do when you adhere the sheet membrane to the pan. So in addition to the sheet membrane and the pan itself, the kit also comes with our accessory pack. And this features a number of different things that helps tie together the installation. We have our seam tape. That's gonna be used to waterproof and shore up the waterproofing for corners, coves, and transitions. We have our mixing valve seal and our pipe collar. So let me just open this up so you guys can see it. We have our pipe collars. We have our inside-outside corners, pre-waterproofed, and we have our mixing valve seal, which also features a pre-waterproofed ring. In addition to all of that, you'll be getting a tube of adhesive and sealant, which will help you marry up wallboard or cement backer board to the rabbet joints that are featured on the pan. Last but not least, you're gonna be getting a data sheet that also ties back to the installation instructions as I referenced on the linear drain pan. Try to follow all manufacturer's required installation instructions. Most of it will be covered in the tips and tricks that we're gonna give you today, but it does make sense to have this handy and revert back to it wherever necessary, specifically for warranty purposes. You know, I forgot, and I'm remiss to mention, last but not least, you will be getting a roll of our sheet membrane. Now, depending on the wallboard installation method that you choose, if you're not going with the pre-waterproofed, prefabricated lightweight wallboard, and you're going with a cement backer board, we do have the sheet membrane that you will be able to thin set right on top of the wall to shore up that portion of the waterproofing. So, just to recap, adhesive and sealant, inside, outside corners, seam tape, pre-cut membrane, mixing valve and pipe collar. You're gonna get your pre-formed, pre-sloped center point pan, as well as the pre-cut floor membrane piece. So much like Robert did previously, Adrian's working to key in the mortar to the substrate. For this specific installation, Adrian, we used 253? Yes. 253, which is one of our highest performing, best selling thin sets. It's perfect for this type of application. Similar to what we did with the linear drain pan, we're using a 1/2 by 1/2 square notch trowel for the substrate itself. We will be using a different trowel when we apply the thin set to the sheet membrane on top of the pan. So as Robert did previously, you can see Adrian's using a similar technique. It's working from back to front. It's keeping those lines parallel. It's extending out across the substrate. Now again, you do have the option to use a drain plug. There are drain plugs available. So along the cutout for the waste outlet, you don't gunk up the middle. We do recommend that you could potentially use that if you'd like as well, just to make sure you don't gum up the gum up the inside where the bonding flange is essentially going to go. And that's also one thing to note about these pans. They do work in accordance with our bonding flange drain. We offer a bonding flange drain in both ABC and ABS and PVC. It comes with a brushed stainless finish grate, a polished stainless finish grate, or an oil rubbed bronze finish grate. So we have a number of different options with that. So 2 different materials, ABS and PVC, and we have our 4x4 grates in brushed, polished, and oil rubbed bronze. They are designed specifically to work with this shower pan. So the cutout on the pan or the preformed cutout or molded in portion of the pan accepts the bonding flange drain perfectly. And we'll show you that in a little bit greater detail as we move forward with the installation. All right, so now, much like Robert did with the bottom portion of the linear drain pan, it's a simple skim coat, back buttering exercise, if you will, with the flat portion of the trowel. You'll hear that, that nice acceptance of the thin set onto the back of the foam. Again, what makes these pans unique, they are lightweight in nature, much like the Multimax Light, which is our lightweight thin set that we talked about earlier. These are centered around ergonomics. It's less carrying around more bulky material that puts wear and tear on your guys' joints when you're on the job site every day. A lot more mobile up, various flights of stairs or in tight spaces, depending on where your installation's taking place. It's just another way that we're looking out for and trying to preserve the longevity of your joints and your body throughout your career. In addition to, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier, this is a 48 by 48 center drain pan. We do have a number of other different sizes available. We start as small as a 38 by 38, and then we have 3260s in both a center drain and an off-center drain, which is good for tub remodels. We have the 48 by 48 barrier-free option that we're showing you here. We have a 48 by 72, and then also a 72 by 72 option. Now, while we did show you the kitted version, which comes with all the trimmings, we have a basic pan version, where you would be simply buying the preformed shower pan with the pre-cut piece of sheet membrane for the floor that comes along with it. Now, where that is key is if you want to do an installation where you're waterproofing with our liquid applied. So that would be a material like our Hydro Barrier Plus or our Hydroban. If you were doing a cement backer board or a hardy backer board wall installation, you can do that with the Hydro Barrier Plus or the Hydroban. Or if you were using a lightweight foam board, that's another option for waterproofing the walls, in addition to the sheet membrane that I talked about earlier over the cement backer board and the thin set. So a number of different options, kind of a choose your own adventure, if you will, with regard to waterproofing the walls. So if you want the shower pan and kit in a box, you just go with the kit. If you want the shower pan because you have a specific way that you like to do walls, whether it be with backer board or whether a liquid applied waterproofing or a lightweight wall board, we have a solution for you in a number of different sizes. All of these accessories that I talked about that come in the kits are also sold and provided a la carte. So you do have the option to purchase the inside-outside corners, the pipe collar, the seam tape, the adhesive and sealant, and the mixing valve seals separately. All right, so it looks like Adrian's done with the back buttering. Now we're gonna get ready to apply the pan directly to the thin set. So I don't know if you guys saw this earlier. But when we went through the dry fitting exercise, We realized that for this specific substrate, we needed to take off a little bit. So Adrian shaved off a little bit of that 48 by 48. So essentially we're working with basically a 48 by 44 at this point. So we want to make sure that we have that set up the right way, and it looks like he does. We'll work side to side, pushing it against the back. So with this barrier-free option is lowered to the point where it allows for that quarter inch slope per linear foot. So no work has to be done to the subfloor specifically for this one. It marries up directly to it. All right, so now that we have the pan in place, the next step is going to be taking the, what is it? What is it, it's a 3/16 trowel.
Yeah.
We're going to be putting the thin set down, and then we'll be putting the sheet membrane directly on. So first, you want to dry fit first? All right. We'll dry fit. Now remember, we cut out the center portion of it, so we've already accounted for the waste outlet. If you were going to dry fit it, you'd want to make sure that you have that center piece cut to accept the bonding flange on the bottom and then the adjusting ring on the top. You can also see that Adrian has left a little bit of wiggle room for the sheet membrane in the front edge. And that's because in a lot of instances, you want to leave that little grace period as you extend out from the wet area into the rest of the bath.
Looks good.
Good to go? All right. So, can I have that knife that we had?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Now on to the unboxing of the bonding flange drain. As noted, data sheet. Now on to the flange itself. Here is our bonding flange. This is the PVC version of it. The inner rim is textured to allow for greater thin set adhesion. So what Adrian's going to be doing is simply dropping that into the cutout. And then starting to apply thin set around the outer rim. Now for the drain gray finishes, like I talked about, we have this one is the polished stainless steel. Like I said, we also have a brushed stainless steel and an oil rub bronze option. Now the bottoms are made for grips, so you can easily unscrew it. What this adhesion ring essentially does, once it's placed in the flange, is going to allow for additional wiggle room from side to side, almost about 1/4 of an inch. And then the threaded nature of the bottom portion of the grate will allow for height adjustment, and we'll get into that a little bit later as he continues with the installation. So for this specific portion, the square cutouts along the rim of the bonding flange should be covered with thin sets, so when you press it down, they ooze out, and then Adrian's flattened them out with the flat side of the trowel. So now that we have the drain pretty much accounted for and adhered in with the pan, now we just go with the rest of the substrate prep, which again, using a 3/16 V-notch trowel, we're going to key it in to the sheet membrane, or key it into the pan, and then we'll be applying the sheet membrane, or the pre-cut piece of sheet membrane, shortly thereafter. Now, Adrian, for the skim coat, the best thing you can do is to fill up the square adhesions, right?
Yeah, you want to get all of them filled and level. That way it gives you a good bonding surface when you put the membrane in.
Yeah, so the main reason why we have those indentations is really to give you a guide. It almost acts as a guideline for that initial skim coat. All right, so now that the substrate is, now that the pan has the thin set applied to the top, again, 3/4 16th V-notch trowel, we are going to place the sheet membrane on top. And again, we've pre-cut that portion of it out. So just to recap, we've adhered the thin set to the substrate. We've adhered the pan to the thin set. We've applied the bonding flange drain. We've applied thin set to the pan. And now we are fitting the sheet membrane from back to front. We've already pre-cut out that center hole. So remind you guys, this is a 48 by 48 barrier-free installation. We have a number of other sizes that I touched upon earlier, 38 by 38, 3260, both center and off center, 48 by 72, and a 72 by 72. But this specific version, this 48 by 48 is barrier-free in nature as it meets the requirements of a 1/4 inch per linear foot slope to the center from all directions. What's neat about this pan is it's thin enough in nature of the way it accepts the bonding flange drain that allows it to classify as a barrier-free installation without having to do any work to the subfloor. So this is one where you can literally just go right on top of the substrate as is. The thin nature of the pan itself will allow it to be married up with the floor height of the tile. So again, almost more of an ease of use type of thing and an ease of use type of approach to barrier-free, especially when you consider the fact that you can get all the items and all the trimmings with it as part of a kit. It makes it for an easy barrier-free shower out of the box. So much like all of the other adhesions we talked about specific with the linear drain pan, Adrian is working back to front to push all the air out with the flat side of the trowel to get the sheet membrane to adhere as crisply and as uniformly as possible to that preformed pan. You can see the air bubbles as they're working their way from left to right. Again, we did leave overlap in the front. You could essentially do it on the sides as well to extend out into from the wet area into the other portion of the shower. All right. All right, now that it looks like we got all the air out, I think we're ready for the final touch, and this would be to add the adhesion ring to that pre-cut out centerpiece. So what Adrian's doing is just raising it up a little bit, right? What you would then want to do is thin set that down to the substrate, and then you would tile into it. Now you could leave the grate in or out to do that. At the end of the day, being able to marry up the height and screw it in, it gives you the play that you can, put that in either last or first and tile up to it. We do have the protective coating on the top of the drain, a plastic coating that will allow for it not to get covered up or gunked up with any material that might come in contact with it during the installation process. All right, now we're not going to go through thin setting that down. It is as simple as thin setting it down and pressing up the material through the floor. What we will do is show you the adherence of and I got to find the wall board. So Adrian's going to put a bead of adhesive and sealant around the rabbet joints on the back walls, and we'll apply some of that lightweight wall board to the base so you guys can see what that looks like. So again, there was a number of different wall options that we had, lightweight board being one of them. So we'll show you what that looks like with the rabbet joints on the pan. I'll get you another piece for the back wall too. This specific piece of wallboard that Adrian has right now is a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch thick. A 1/2 inch thick, 3 by 5 in dimension. It has waterproofing on both sides, extremely rigid, this specific model. Vapor permeance, that's another thing to reference, and I forgot to mention. On our sheet membranes and also some of these lightweight wallboards, They are they do carry a vapor rating that allows it to be used in both steam showers and steam rooms. So a little bit more versatility than some of the other, liquid applied or some of the other types of installations, but these are already rated for steam shower usage. So essentially the second piece would then sit in. I don't think we need to do more of the sealant, but the second piece would then sit into the rabbet joint in the back. And then that gives you the chance to get started both tiling up to the floor and then also the walls. All right, guys, now that we've finished up this portion of the installation, of this second installation, I want to remind you of a couple things. If you have questions after, I want to remind you guys, you always have the ability, you always have the ear of the local Floor and Decor Pro Manager, who in then turn can get you in contact with your local Laticrete rep. So what we're really focusing on is an ecosystem of continuous information and continuous flow of information. So if you have further questions, reach out to them. They'll give you the contacts for us. It's really one of the things we're excited about as part of this Floor and Decor partnership, in that we'll always have conversation going and always have conversation brewing, because we're here to help you with whatever type of installs or whatever type of material questions you have moving forward. So again, just thank you guys for taking the time out, sharing some time with me, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks.